Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Podcana episode 70. This week, we look forward towards the tournaments in Birmingham and Vegas. We're going to be looking at some previous tournaments that occurred over the past couple weeks in terms of deck lists and try to talk about the metagame that we expect leading into those tournaments. Both Kawa and Moyen will be competing in Birmingham, and in Vegas, I will be once again in the booth. How you guys feeling for this competition? Moyen, you kind of did well at the last one. I know you had some tough beats in the first couple, but coming off the back of a good performance, how are you feeling going into Birmingham?
No, I feel good, but I almost feel insulted. This semi-pro player, semi-caster tells me I did so poorly. I still had like positive game score. I still got like, I don't know, middling 30 points. Who are you to tell me I did poorly? I did okay. I did okay in the other ones. And no, I feel good going into this. I generally don't lack confidence going into these bigger tournaments. But at the end of the day, I mean, I try, you always try as hard as you can, and then you see what comes out.
You feel like the pressure's off at least, though, for like, you have that qualification in the bag.
I mean, if I had a third tournament where I only did okay, then suddenly the pressure would be piling up. Now I feel like a little bit less pressure. I still want to do well, but if I don't do well, I'm looking forward to playing Euros at least.
Yeah.
How do you feel, Kava?
God, I feel like you've just thrown so much pressure on me there. Oh my God. No, I don't know. I don't really tend to put a lot of pressure on myself. I think for majority of the challenge events, I am actually still very proud of how I played. Like you said, Moyen, I averaged 30 plus points for most of them. Two of the events I got 40 plus points. I'll be honest, I am still a little bit disappointed with my ending result in Toronto. I think that was the closest chance I had to making the day 2. I played really well. I thought I had a good deck going into the playing field, but for this one, honestly, I'm gonna just have fun, play the same way I've played before, and maybe this is the one where it happens. But I honestly don't feel any more pressure than I have for the other ones. And either way, I'm gonna try go to Euros to do the last chance qualifiers if I don't grab the qual in Birmingham. But I'm just looking forward to the event again. Honestly, like. We are competitive players at heart, but every time I go to these challenge events, it's like I get to meet so many cool people, hang out with you, Moyen, and other creators and players and stuff like that. So that's what I always try to look forward to the most, honestly, going into these events.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Moyen's like, I would be nervous, but not in this scenario. How do you feel, Kyle?
Yeah. I'm like, thanks for that. Yeah,
I didn't mean it like that.
It's all good. Yeah, Brandon, how are you? How are you feeling going into Vegas? Are you excited to cast this meta so far?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like, I'm kind of having to leave my prep until like basically this week, which is not ideal, but just the way it works with how we test is my previous testing group for the last tournament that I was casting was largely, Tarek Patel and like some of these other guys, these Canadians. And I don't think they're not going to this tournament, so my testing group is mostly you guys, our time zones right now are really hard to line up because I'm pretty busy during the day, and then during the evening they of course go to sleep. But I'm confident that I can get in all the prep that I need to.
It's funny you mentioned Tarek, because myself and him, we were monitoring Birmingham tickets for ages because he was thinking of coming to Birmingham, because I think he said he's going to be in France anyways this week for an event. And we kept looking for weeks and there was like nothing. And then yesterday I saw some tickets were available, but of course he was asleep. And then when I tried to get them when he was awake, they were gone. And he was like, "Well, I've already booked my tickets to France, so we'll just leave it." But I think it's cool to see that. I think he really did enjoy the last DLC, and I think he's excited to just compete in more Lorcana events going forward. So that's good to see.
Yeah, Tarek is kind of a enigma to me, to be honest. Somewhat reminds me of myself, but I've seen Tarek play card games now for 3 years. He's stayed over at my place. We've hung out in many different places across the world. I don't think I've ever seen a expression of joy when Tarek was playing a card. Like, I don't know why he plays card games. Like he I think that there's like some deep like competitive sort of itch that he has to scratch, but it doesn't really feel. So, I don't know. Sometimes it doesn't feel like he actually enjoys games. Yeah, it doesn't feel like he actually enjoys the games. But then again, he's I don't know if people who are listening to this most of you probably don't know Tarek Patel quite yet, but he's like an actual doctor, like a real doctor. Yet he's one of the most degenerate, like fly to across the world on a whim for some sort of middling tournament with like whatever prizes. Just I don't know. He's just an absolute degen when it comes to card games, and he's super good. But the only time I've ever seen him happy playing a card game was when he was gambling with dice for his like $1,000 to $10,000 promo prize. They were just rolling dice to see. They both had one, and they were just doing a dice roll off to see who would get two.
Oh wow!
Genuine joy when he won that. Yeah, he loved that. I think he really revels in the misery of his opponents.
Yeah, shame he didn't get to play Bucky, or did he?
No, he couldn't have even played Bucky because he started in the Toronto meta, right? Yeah. So yeah.
So. Just a little bit
too
soon, the errata.
I think he likes red purple too. He likes like the.
Oh, he loves the deck. Oh my god. Yeah. He keeps sending me his updated builds, and I'm like, yep. I'm not a red purple player, but I still respect it. Yeah.
I saw the builds. I didn't respect it. But
okay. Bro, yeah, he's like he's definitely a brewer, but if you put
I do respect brewing to some extent. It's just like I wouldn't have played those lists.
Well, it's a numbers game. You put those monkeys in a room. Eventually, they'll write Shakespeare, and that happens with Tarek for sure. Yeah. There's a lot of turds that come through.
I almost didn't make it to Birmingham.
Oh yeah, this is a funny story.
Yeah, so I my passport was expired, and a long time ago I went to get a new one. And then every few weeks I checked if it was ready for me to retrieve, and it was never ready. So then at some point I kind of forgot about retrieving it until today, where I realized I don't get into the UK without a passport since Brexit. And then I realized, okay, my local office, I can go there Wednesday without an appointment. I checked their website. Oh, this Wednesday they're closed because of an internal thing that they have going on. So I was like, okay, so I just need an appointment. I go to the website, and there's still like 2 appointments left. Due in the time where I tried to book them for me, they're gone.
Sniped. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's like a DLC ticket.
Yeah. So after that, I spent most of my early day just refreshing the site every single second until someone forgot to confirm their appointment. I immediately sniped that shit, went to the office, and I can still come, but. I can't say I wasn't sweating that I just wouldn't be able to go because of no passport.
Yeah, you trained up from trying to secure your DLC tickets that you sniped that shit fast, yeah.
Otherwise I would have been doomed.
How is the German bureaucracy in general? Good?
No, I wouldn't. So
okay.
I
my only experience is with the Deutschbahn, and oh man, it was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad. It was definitely, I was like, okay, we're in Germany. This is going to be hyper efficiency, very strict, complete opposite. Probably the worst of the worst I had. Yeah. So
I actually, when Spessy was here, we had to take public transport so often that I just bought him like a Germany ticket for the entirety of Germany, and then but it only comes in a subscription model. So I bought it for him even for like a week. I wanted to immediately cancel, and they were like, "Yeah, you can only cancel it middle of the month," and it was after middle of the month, so they didn't want to let me cancel it, even if I just booked it for this 1 month, and they wanted me to pay two. So I think we got it resolved by now, but that was an entirely different story.
And with that, we're gonna move into the spilled ink section. This is the listener question section. If you guys want to have your questions read out on next week's podcast, be sure to drop a comment down below. The first one is from Steel Smith J. They say Podstash Podcast. I think we got to rebrand, Moyen. Oh no, it's gone. No, how do I miss it? Oh my god, it's gone. It's disappeared.
Yeah.
You didn't even realize it when it was there out of nowhere. The entire comment section was about it. You didn't say a single word about it.
Yeah.
So maybe you're the reason it's gone.
Yeah, maybe I'm the reason.
I've been looking at it this whole time, but I think that you're probably the only one that can grow a true mustache on this podcast.
Yeah, I definitely can't. I definitely can't.
I could grow something. It would look a bit concerning, but I could put something in there.
Oh, the next comment is from Provocative Pixels. You can call for a deck count during the game in Lorcana. It's in the rules. Y'all should know this. I appreciate you telling us that we should know this, but I just appreciate you telling us in general, because I did ask last week people could confirm this. So I suppose, yeah, at any time. Well, it's kind of like what we talked about last week, right? It's like if you suspect anything with your opponent's deck, I guess you could just call the judge and say, can you count their deck,
Yeah.
I suppose?
And I think we kind of knew that you can ask your opponent for their deck count. I think what we were less sure about is, can you just manually count your opponent's deck yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I expected it because, like, so if you just think about the opposite, like, let's say it was not true, it would be there'd be unavoidable scenarios where you could get the count of your opponent's deck, I think. And, like, it just wouldn't make any sense, in my opinion. I actually had I remember in Flesh and Blood, that happened to me. So in Flesh and Blood, you can only count your opponent's deck at a very specific time. And they thought that meant you couldn't count it at all. There's actually a very famous Magic player, and they were like very angry at me, and they're like, "You cannot count my deck. I know which," because I put it down and I went 1, 2, 3, and I'm like counting while pile shuffling. He's like, "I know what you're doing. I'm counting your deck." I was like, "Yeah, bro, I'm fucking counting it out loud. What are you talking about?" Like, yes. And we got a judge call, all that good stuff, and I was like, "It's okay, bro. I think I understand where the misunderstanding is. You read the section where I can't count it after after the sideboarding or pre-boarding. No, this is legal, which was allowed. But yeah, counting the opponent's deck is basically unavoidable if you're giving it to shuffle, because like if you pile shuffle it, you inherently count. So you'd have to also.
So that's if you pile shuffle it, not if you just.
But you can also ask for it in the middle of the game, especially in the whole new world matchups.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, true. Yeah.
There's also one thing else with this comment. It's like, it's in the rules. Y'all should know this. Why? Because we have a podcast? What the? People always assume that I know the rules. Like, I'll be way worse in Flesh and Blood because Lorcana doesn't have many rules interactions. But it used to happen to me all the time. I'd be walking in a convention center in Flesh and Blood, and I would walk by a table or I'd be watching something, and there would be a rules interaction, and someone would go, "Brendan," and I'd be like, no. First of all, I can't do that. And two,
I probably don't know.
I'm an idiot. Don't ask me. I don't know. Like,
yeah, I do think, I think because we did this podcast, I don't think that we're expected to know all of the rules of the game. I think we're expected to have a high knowledge of the game, sure, but that is the reason why judges exist, right?
Yeah.
And
perfect example, in my opinion, is regarding. I think we talked about last week's podcast. Talked about checking your sleeves in between every single round, all that stuff. And I go at the end, I was like, "How much do you guys actually do that?" And he was like, "Well, maybe once a day." Yeah.
Sarah Moyen, were you going to say something?
No, I just meant like none of us are judges, so
yeah.
I think as players, yes, to some extent we should know the rules, and it would probably best if we knew them to their entire extent. But I think most players don't, and I think that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Next comment is from Dad Gamer Life. Net decking is only good for testing, but never should be the way to go into an event. The best players will know how to adjust to previous big events and be a step above those that only net deck. Earl especially is not a good deck builder or player to base your decks off of, even though he has hype going because of Pixelborn Connect. Pixelborn Connect is a glimmer of its former self, and quality player pool in general is limited, with the most competitive players are now only playing in their small groups on Discord, Tabletop Simulator, on top, etc. Even the winner case he got first was only 36 players and very few meta decks even listed from it. I will note as well that that particular tournament, I think there was a top 4 split and he had the best record. I want to clarify, this is not an attack on Earl Meister. He is a great creator. I think the reason I wanted to highlight this comment is I really do agree with the statement, which is Pixelborn Connect is a glimmer of its former self and the quality player pool in general is limited. Because I do think the most competitive players are doing like this internal testing. Not to say that they weren't before, but I mean, Moyen, right? Like, you were playing at the highest level of Pixelborn when it was around, and I'm sure you can attest that it was still efficient testing because you probably felt like you were playing against quite good players for the most part, I'd imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Like, maybe you wouldn't... Like, we used to do internal testing when Pixelborn was around, but only for very, very specific things. So you like couldn't do on a ladder match. And to be hyper efficient testing a matchup.
Right. Yeah. Most things you could just do on the ladder, and then if you have like a very specific idea for a specific matchup or specific situation, we could then hyper focus test stuff.
Yeah. But I'll say I'm a big net decker. I love net decking. I think that the magic comes in potentially some of the adjustments you make or don't make. I think a lot of people take great lists and they make them bad by making adjustments, trying to be clever or cute. But yeah, I like net decking the right people. Like,
no,
I think I've got a list of people.
I think net decking is
one of them.
Yeah, I think net decking. Like I mean that's the best example right there, Brennan. I'm net decking Moyen's lists all the time, right? But like when I net deck Moyen's deck, for me at least, I'm always trying to make like little adjustments here and there. And if Moyen can convince me reasons why that is incorrect and why certain cards are there, I'll be happy to listen to that. But I think like, you know, oftentimes players can net deck and just say, oh well, like I'll just play this card because it was in a winning deck and not maybe understand the reasoning why certain cards are included there. But I'm always of the opinion that if you want to take a look at someone's deck list that perform really well, maybe not all the time, but I think it is interesting to try and experiment a little bit to, you know, make certain adjustments. Now that can sometimes result in, you know, you changing, you know, putting bad cards in place of good cards for the deck and stuff like that. But I'm always up to tweaking a well-performing deck personally, than just straight up copying it. I don't know, maybe that's just me. So yeah. The next comment is a funny one. It's from Maho Basil. Always love the pod, gents, but my one request would be to let your co-casters finish their thoughts. Stop talking over each other. Do you guys think? I think we do. We definitely do at times, but I think it's also a part of this podcast, you know.
Yeah. I love when the talker over guy goes, we do this. No, I'm fucking with you.
Well, I felt like I didn't want to comment on this to show that I don't have to talk over you guys. but it's the first time we've gotten a comment like this, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And to be fair, I think last week I did feel like it happened a little bit more than it usually does. But I think in general, everyone still gets to say their piece.
Yeah.
I didn't notice it, so I was probably doing it.
Except when the next comment says, Kawa really needs to wait his turn and stop butting in when others are speaking. So,
yeah.
My apologies, guys. I will monitor that going forward.
I like the solidarity, though, where you're like, we need to stop this, guys. We need to come together as a group and work on this.
At first, on the first comment, I was self-reflecting. Oh, am I doing this shit? And then I was like, yeah, okay, it's just Kawa.
It's just Kawa, yeah, it's just Kawa. Yeah.
I'm good. No need to self-reflect anymore.
The next comment is from GT Glenn. Pete and also Bare Necessities mean that Be Prepared can almost be a dead card against Amber Steel. The CC is better in that situation, and against aggro decks is pretty much as effective as Be Prepared because of the ability to shift onto a smaller Sisu for 6. I think this is just continuing the point about, how a lot of the red-blue decks have cut down on the amount of B preps they run, and they've upped the Sisu count, which I think is definitely interesting. I do actually want to pose a question to both of you, as I know you're both a fan of red-blue. How do you think of possibly, I do really like the addition of the big Sisus, but if you felt like you wanted more kind of board clear type cards, like do you think Scar ever kind of makes it back into a deck, even though it's not, like, I don't know, like maybe you can kind of compare Scar to something like Be Prepared, but like it's also very, very different because Scar can only interact with exerted opposing cards. But do you think there is a space for Scar in these kind of red-blue decks at the moment as like a possible one-of, or Moyen's starting to smile, so I think he's going to say no. But I know you were previously a fan of Scar, right?
Yeah, I liked Scar. I've always been a bigger fan of Scar than the general public.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think Scar's fine as long as people don't see him coming. I don't think Scar's ever going to be like the staple 1 or 2 of. But as long as like 90% of the meta red-blue doesn't play it, if you suddenly whip out the Scar and your opponent played into it, I think that's really where he shines.
Yeah, I mean, that's happened to me where I've been expecting like a B prep, and sometimes the Scar can take me by surprise and can leave them in a better position because, I mean, you know, sometimes they play the Scar and then they can hold the B prep or whatever, but it's definitely a surprise card for sure, in my opinion.
I like Scar for locations. Well,
Yeah.
not just the location, but I like to be able to... Like, I found that Scar was most powerful when it was like, okay, clear, relevant threat on the board that is questing, but then also my opponent has deployed a location so that I can't B-prep them in an efficient way, and now my Scar can both clear the board and hit the location.
Right. And
Maybe it's a bygone meta, though.
No, to an extent I agree, and also there's this popular red purple list that plays 4 castle to library now, and especially against that, I think that's still very relevant. Also, because sometimes people think, oh, but it doesn't clear the location. Okay, but what really does 7 or 8 damage immediately? Okay, you have some ways with maybe Vitalisphere or Rubicromicon, but other than that, you just don't one-hit these locations. That's why they're so strong. But now, because you have preempted, the Scar already did 6 damage, means even if your opponent B-preps, your Maui clears it. If they don't B-prep, it's already contested. Like, it still does very, very relevant damage to the locations.
Yeah, so maybe we've just this would be so funny if we go to the events there on the weekend and every red-blue player has a cheeky Scar that they whip out. Yeah.
I'd be surprised, to be honest. Like,
Yeah, me too.
it's
The list is very tight from what I've seen for a lot of players. Like the micro ratios of certain cards. Like, people definitely have their own preferences in terms of. I've seen some people completely cut like the how far I'll goes, different counts of the visions of the future, stuff like that. Some are opting to cut Cusco entirely. Some feel like it's really necessary to have against some of the locations. So there are already so many different like micro decisions of like, what do we include? Go ahead.
Which is very good. Because now in set 5 we actually have options how to build red blue. In set 4 there was still some people that build it in a different way, but they were just wrong. Now in set 5, like, there's up and downsides to how you can build it, and there's some more options. Like in set 4, I think you just play for Fargo, for Medusa, play the like kind of standard build, and there's not really much reason to differentiate. Now there's so many back and forths between how much of the Iceberg Sisu package do you play, how many brawls, how many Cusco or Hideaway, what's your board clear count. There's so many ways to build it, so I really enjoy that. Regarding the comment, of course Sisu is the better card against Ember Steel because it still clears quite a lot and it doesn't get whipped by Peter by necessities. The point that I don't really agree on is that that the ability to shift it on small Sisu against Ember Steel specifically is that much of a factor, because the only small Sisu that's generally played is the human Sisu.
I guess removed quite easily, right?
It does not. If you have 6 ink to spend and they want to play on Shift Sisu, they know it's a threat, and it also, they can remove it so efficiently. It's not like the opportunity cost of that is super big. So you could say, okay, but you could play the other Sisu that's much harder to remove. But I think that card just doesn't really fit what the length wants to do, and it's not something I would recommend. So I don't think the shift is really all that important against specifically Ember Steel, but still Sisu is of course the premier removal against Ember Steel.
Next comment is from Darren Hazelden 2340. This is in relation to us talking about the travel and accommodation stuff last week. They say, I'm not surprised that Ravensburger aren't offering travel/accommodation, but there were plenty of games that offered both or offered a travel stipend. FFG gave travel and accommodation to national champions at an event over Excise. I think it was 50 plus players. I've no idea how to pronounce this game. I'm pretty sure it's a card game. It's
Weiss Schwartz.
Weiss Schwartz. Players get flights and accommodation. Pokemon has been doing it. It's not unheard of at all. I think I still overall agree with Brendan, though, I will say.
Wow. I have to talk about Marvel Snap every week. And these comments come up and they're like, what if they reworked it like this? What if they reworked it like... And I fucking agree with them, don't get me wrong. But the problem is like, if you ever present Second Dinner, and this is not Second Dinner, but if you ever present them with a choice where it's like, would you like to make more money or less money? They choose more money every time. The problem with providing a comm, in my opinion, is that, okay, sure, there's some industry precedent in the past. I don't even think it's happening a lot right now. You said maybe Pokemon currently does it. But if they don't do it, what's going to happen? Y'all are all still going to go. No. It's all going to be the same.
I would protest.
They're just, no. Everybody's still going to go.
You didn't say you're not going to go. You said you'll protest, but then they'll be like, yeah, but he's still going to go.
Oh,
nothing will change. And then if they do offer a comm, you get like a, I don't know, a small, almost minuscule, I would say almost irrelevant PR boost. and you make a few players happy. I guess like
You make
it's just
fun.
it's so cynical. But I mean, like I said, I talk about Marvel Snap every single week, so I just
Oh.
big companies and making less money, they just don't go together.
I mean, I assume the Worlds EV would be great, but let's say, okay, Worlds is an NA. It is quite expensive to fly over and pay accommodation. I think it would be a very bad. So okay, you say everyone's still going to go, right? But I think if anyone actually says, okay, with all that I would have to spend to go there, I don't think this is worth for me. I think that would be quite bad for the event itself and for the PR.
I think that's while I do agree with that, it's bad to say, you've got this really competitive player and maybe it is so much that they can't attend. I think I've heard of a similar situation like this in, I'm gonna say Flesh and Blood, but I could be wrong. There's someone I'm pretty sure I know who was like qualified for a certain thing in Flesh and Blood, but just couldn't afford to go, so they just didn't go.
Well, ain't nothing hard to qualify for in Flesh and Blood, unfortunately. It's pretty easy. It's pretty easy. Like, first of all,
But still,
you can buy it,
the point's still valid, right? It's like, well, I've got to this
but
stage.
if there was like a really competitive player that the community would be upset that they were so competitive, so good that the community would be upset that they couldn't attend Worlds, I feel like they could find a way to supplement that travel
But
cost.
then
with
what
some
happens?
sort of-
But then,
this is the whole thing. It's like it's like in every industry, right? It's like once you make an exception for someone, well, why can't you make an exception for everyone? I feel like this, you know what I mean? Oh, if this one player can't go, we'll give them money to go. Well, I'm the same. I'm in the same situation. Suddenly, more people complain, and then there's more money given out. I don't know. It's like this is all business.
So
Business
all,
stuff.
all I'm saying is that, like, in my ideal world, in my head, I'm thinking if the World Championships, like the pinnacle of their competitive scene, it should be it should be in a way where it's worth it for everyone to attend, just because that's where everyone wants to be. So if someone makes it there and then still it's better for them not to go, I think that would be a bad look. But that's just me. And I assume even if we had to pay our own accommodation, probably the EV is good enough that everyone would want to go anyways. But I think for at least for Worlds itself, we
want.
my ideal
trust.
world, I would be 6'7", handsome, rich.
You're not 6'7"?
No, 4'10". There's a lot of ideals, but you got to pitch it to Ravensburger why they should make less money.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I want it as well, Moyen. I'm pretty sure everyone in the community would love it, but I don't know. I hope it happens. It just seems a little bit far-fetched, unfortunately. The next comment is from PlantGuy7630. The thing to keep in mind with Pixelborn Connect is that your rank isn't factoring into matchmaking right now. It's more about queue time since there's a smaller player base. So there are still very good players, but you're not going to consistently be playing them as far as I know right now. I do think this is true. Yeah, how this is set up right now.
Hear me out. May potentially ignorant take. Modern Pixelborn Connect is lab from Pixelborn.
Oh, wow, yeah.
How much Pixelborn Connect have you played?
One game.
Is it maybe
Wait, Moyen's played.
I said potentially ignorant, but it sounds like lab.
Yeah, it kind of does. But I can't tell.
But also, Moyen and Brendan, I know. Moyen's played one game, Brendan's played one. Yeah. I have played a lot, right?
Yeah, so
I have played a lot.
I feel like one is a lot.
So, okay, how much lab have you played?
Yeah.
Yeah, how much? Wait, me?
Yeah.
How much lab have I played? Like one game. Like one game of lab.
I mean, okay, I didn't play that much lab either, but I guess
I did
okay,
too.
then no one can tell if it's.
I played lab. I went 20-0, and I promptly closed my freaking client because I was like, "This is a waste of my time."
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
okay. Let's be real. I don't play Pixelborn Connect. I don't know, but without matchmaking or without like matchmaking based off MMR or win rate or something like that, that's what lab was. And I played a bit of lab. And it was not helpful.
The thing I'll say for this is, honestly, I still agree with the system that's in place because I would, no matter what, as the general Lorcana player, I think it's still better to have consistent games and play, get games fast than sit in a queue for 5, maybe 10 minutes, depending on what your rank is, honestly. Like, I think the way it's set up right now is good. As much as we're just trying to explain how the system works, but overall, in my opinion at least, I do still think it's the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah, on a small player base, it's just a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I don't doubt that there's good players playing there, but Yes, you won't see them all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing on it, right? I'm clearly not a good player, so yeah.
Yeah, how many day twos?
Yeah, this many. Yeah.
I also 0 day twos. I'm joking.
We casted day 2.
I did, yeah.
Brendan did make it to a day 2. Yeah.
That counts. Yeah.
So the last comment we have is quite a long one, but I did want to read it out because it's like I think it evaluates the whole discussion that we had on pile shuffling last week really well. So I'm going to go through it, and if any point you guys want to stop me and we can discuss it, happy to do so. So the comment is from Wonk Daddy Gaming. Long message incoming. Apologies in advance. Hey guys, been a while since I commented. Brendan, it was great meeting you at DLC Fort Worth. I thought about the pile shuffling discussion was really interesting. For me, I've never pile shuffled for any reason other than a self-integrity check. In Magic, I would pile shuffle before every game, especially after sideboarding. I've actually been disqualified from a win and in a major of a tournament because I presented 59 cards after sideboarding, accidentally of course. Even double checking the sideboard, the pile was the safest way to ensure a legal deck was presented. I still rely on regular shuffling to do randomization. I think this was the basis of a lot of other people left comments about the pile shuffling, and they also agreed that if they do pile shuffling, most of the time they do shuffling after as well to do more randomization. Then they say, go ahead. Yep.
So just I think if there was a sideboard, I could see it more, right? But we don't have a sideboard.
Well,
So
I have to make one
my deck
assertion.
doesn't really change.
Okay, so you can make one argument against this, which is time. But sometimes you get to sit down early, and sometimes the time is not completely relevant. And you can also do this fast.
Yeah.
Assuming that all of those things are true, I think that it is just absolutely optimal. Like I think it is optimal.
I mean, I guess before the timer started, it has upside and it doesn't have downside. So it's just self-integrity check. That's cool. And I think before the time starts, I don't mind it anyways. Also, I think in our Discord we've had a few discussions about it where someone mentioned that in the recent NA challenges it was ruled in a way where you could I don't know if they were sure about it, but this was like either once per match or once per game you were allowed to pile shuffle if like there was no like I guess slow play accusations.
Just to continue the comment, they say, what I adapted for Pokemon Lorcana is to pile shuffle after a match is over. That allows me to check for damaged sleeves, card count, but also it is a nice brief time to reflect on my games. I tend to record what I play against and like to make notes about specific scenarios and lines. The post-match pile has been great for me to quickly review that setting and then record my notes to help me improve. I can't say I have stuck to that 100% of the time if there was a time constraint or something, but most matches I will do this procedure and I feel it has helped a ton as for growth and understanding. They then continue to say, I've never pile shuffled my opponent's deck. I think I agree with Moyen that I can only do so much to ensure my opponent's integrity without impeding the pace of the game myself. If I've ever found anything remotely suspicious about my opponent's deck when I'm shuffling it for cut, I just call a judge. That is what they are there for. If my opponent pile shuffles and there is sufficient time, I just ensure that the deck has been shuffled another way sufficiently. If there is limited time, then I politely say that we are low on time and a pile shuffle is not appropriate. If my opponent were to pile shuffle my deck, I would actually be concerned they are rule sharking for any little accidental reason to try and sneak a violation to win a game or match. So I would just call a judge and ask them to check my deck. That would reassure my opponent, but also provide a time extension so there is no loss in game time. If they try to pile again between games, I would call the judge again, but also note that I think my opponent is intentionally wasting time. You guys have anything to add so far? I agree with all of that so far, in my opinion.
I do at Pro Tours and World Championships. I would never do it at like a local or honestly, and like I don't even know how often I do it because I'm pretty lazy. But I do enjoy pile shuffling my opponent's deck because at least it's got to be 30-40% of the time. They're not cheating, but there's a busted sleeve. And I have never won a game off of a sleeve violation. I'm just saying that because I'm not looking for I'm usually not going for that, but I tell my opponent and then they fix it. But yes, I have seen plenty of examples where people do that. They do see your broken sleeve and they don't tell you, and then if they're losing, they may bring it up, have your deck get checked. That's like probably the most scummy legal thing you can do in card games. Like it is complete angle shooting. But I don't know. I just like doing it. I like counting the cards. I like doing it. Yeah, it's like a little ritual for me, to be honest. Because I think at the highest level of competition, it is optimal to do, assuming that time is not a constraint.
I'm going to just finish off the comment because I think it rounds it off well. I don't think there's a correct answer on approach, so I focus on controlling what I can and intentionally, and players also look... Oh, sorry. I focus on controlling what I can and utilizing the judges for what they are there to do. Players do cheat, players do waste time intentionally, and players also look to take very morally gratifying routes to steal a win without necessarily playing the game. It's not common, but it does happen, unfortunately. The best we can do as players is provide transparency and maintain our own integrity when playing. If anything suspicious occurs, then calling a judge and explaining your concern is the next best thing you can do. Good luck in Vegas and Birmingham. Hopefully, I will get to see some of you or all of you at DLC Seattle. So I just want to say, Wonk Daddy Gaming, I think this is a really great comment. I think you explained your points really well. And I ultimately agree with you to say that I don't think there's a correct answer on approach, but I also try to do what I can do my best, you know what I mean? And then if I need a judge, that's what they're there for, right? So yeah, cool. And with that, that's this building section. Again, if you guys want to have your questions read out, be sure to pop a comment down below. We will read it out next week, or also join the Discord. There's loads of great discussions in there, as Moyen said. Okay, so before we jump into the good stuff about Birmingham and the Vegas prep, I did want to talk about one quick tournament that happened this weekend. It's Lorcana League Italy, or Italia rather. I have a friend actually that goes to my locals who is Italian, and he goes back to play a lot of these events that Lorcana League Italia run, and they're always very, very well run. This event had 108 players in it, and for the top 4, we had a Emerald Amethyst, we had an Amber Emerald, we had Steel Song, and then we also had Ruby Amethyst. So I have the deck lists up in front of me. If you guys are interested in checking out the deck lists, just go down to the description below and we'll have all of them there. I had a quick breeze through the deck lists, and I think for the most part, I like the look of a lot of them. I've been feeling very weird when I look at certain Amethyst Emerald decks, because I think that some of them are including cards that just aren't really that necessary. But this particular version from this tournament, I think, is one that I'm quite impressed by. I think it has all of the appropriate tools in it. I love seeing the 5-cost Elsa in there as, like, kind of this tempo / removal tool that has been granted to Emerald Amethyst. I'm a big fan of seeing the 7-cost Shift Ursula. I don't think that card's included in all of the Emerald Amethyst lists, but I think it's such a great card if you shift it onto a 1/3 Ursula, and it's just quite hard for the opponent to remove. So pretty impressed by that list. There's also the Amber Emerald list, which you guys know I'm a huge fan of in general as well. A lot of these lists are very stock standard with minor changes, minor tweaks happening. Again, I think it's pretty much like a 55 card kind of core to their deck, and then people kind of sprinkle whatever things that they want to do. I do notice that there's 3 Sir Hiss in the deck and only 3 5-cost Kita. I'm very high on Sir Hiss. I could be alone in this, but I think he's great in any non-steel matchups. I love having him. He can be inked a lot of the time, but I think he's a super good card. And I like to have 4 Kita personally in my Amber Emerald list, because I just want that combo to be kind of hitting as consistently as possible. But then I think just playing this Kita as a 3/5 without the combo is also really strong, because it just protects your cards like Prince John and Ursula and Ariel from getting removed if your opponent has no rush cards. Moyen, I know I'm talking a lot here, so I'll let you maybe discuss the Amber Steel list and the Ruby Amethyst list that we have here. This was the 3rd and 4th place list. If there's anything that kind of stands out to you, or maybe just break down the list for the viewers.
I mean, the Amber Steel list is a 2 Naveen list that includes Daisy Duck and plays both shift lines, which has been a little bit less common. I think usually, well, a lot of the time we see either of the shift lines chosen, either Queen or Robin Hood, but not both of them. So that's probably what makes this list special. Also, 2 Benja to really slow down the Sapphire decks in their tracks. And having some sort of board wipes with it, which is also a lot less common, because in the White Blue matchup itself, all these cards can quickly be dead, but with a late game of 2 Tinkerbell, 2 Grab Your Sword deck, also have very, very efficient ways to swing the board against red purple.
I have a quick question to make about that, if that's okay. I've seen a few Amber Steel lists. I think this decision is wrong. I've seen a few Amber Steel lists start to cut Grab Your Swords entirely. I personally cannot get behind that logic. If you have any reason to believe why that might be the case, maybe it's just to include other good new, set 5 cards. But I think having a card like Grab Your Swords in the deck, just as a 2-of, is extremely powerful against any aggro deck in general. It's especially effective against Prince John. If you're playing against any Emerald deck, Grab Your Sword is probably the most efficient way to remove a Prince John for this deck. And besides that, it's probably not happening,
Yeah, I think maybe you have a slight bias because Grab Sword is insane against Ember Emerald, which you like to play.
That
I
makes
was
sense.
gonna say, I was like, it's like ass against like. I mean, it's not ass in the mirror, but it's ass in a lot of other matchups.
Yeah, it's because it doesn't even answer Daisy against and against red blue. You kind of want to minimize the amount of kind of dead cards in that matchup you have.
Sure.
So there is definitely reasons behind it, but against Ember Emerald, it's of course absolutely incredible.
But I don't know if there's reasons enough to just cut it entirely. Maybe you put it down to a 1-of if you're expecting a field full of just Ruby Sapphire. But I just think if you're coming into a metagame where there will probably be some Emerald decks, I think 2-of is probably fine. But again,
I think that's, I would say the aggro matchup, while it's good in that matchup, I think those matchups are so free for Ember Steel. Even when you don't include it, so that matchup is not super important. But against any Prince John deck, especially or maybe Diablo decks, I think it's very, very good.
I don't know if you want to transition, but I kind of want to talk about this Emerald Amethyst deck.
Yeah, we can go back to that Emerald Amethyst deck, yeah.
Yeah, well, Emerald Amethyst doesn't play Diablo. Is that normal?
No, it doesn't. Yeah, that is normal. Yeah.
What about
I think you're catching up to the meta right now, Brandon. Yeah.
Bro, I honestly, it's the first Amethyst Emerald deck I've seen this meta, to be honest. What about these 2 You're Welcomes?
I don't think that's as common usually, right?
No, I mean it's been getting more common. Maybe if 1 or 2 weeks ago it wasn't common at all to play You're Welcome, but now the green-purple community kind of decides, we need some way to answer both Cinderella Stout-Hearted against Ember Steel, but also sometimes Tematoa.
And also sometimes you use Rabbit to sing it on itself and just get more cards, right? There's that's why I think You're Welcome such a great card, because it's so flexible in terms of, sure, you've got that optional removal against your opponent, but then you could also use one of your characters, put that back in the deck, and then get some more cards.
Does it combo with Clarabelle? Is that kind of the idea too? Is giving the Clarabelle down?
Yeah, that can come up. I think as a baseline, it helps to see it in comparison to Mother Knows Best, where it is this singable tempo tool where you give up value for tempo, right? A little bit like with Mother Knows Best. I guess the difference is Mother Knows Best gives them the actual card back into the hand instead of 2 new cards, which can sometimes be better, can sometimes be worse, depending on the on-the-play effect, because we have a lot of strong on-the-play effects in the game. Or if they need a B prep, maybe You're Welcome drawing them towards that can hurt. But if you compare it to Mother Knows Best, it's like this super. It kind of sacrifices value to generate a lot of tempo, and that the biggest difference being, okay, yes, it costs 1 more, but it's inkable. And the huge downside of Mother Knows Best was always you need a specific situation for this card to become good. Then it can become very good, but you might be stuck with the card otherwise. Whereas You're Welcome, the downside of the card when it's not good isn't as big because it's inkable, and maybe you can cast it on your own Rabbit, or maybe you use it with Clarabelle on the board. But I think the easiest way to understand why it might have a place in the deck is to see it as this little bit more expensive inkable copy of a card that does something very similar to what Mother Knows Best used to do in green purple.
I think that's
what is green purple weak to?
Artabex would say it's not weak to anything. But,
of course.
So basically every matchup where he says it's a 50-50, it's probably slightly unfavored. But I think against Ember Steel, it can struggle. But the Ember Steel matchup is very swingy depending on how many Ursula Deceiver do you draw, and if you can shift the Ursula Sea Witch Queen that can push you quite far ahead? Can you make them unable to play the whole new world, and then they kind of run out of cards themselves, and you just stabilize because you play purple cards? And like Ursula and 2 bounce cards can help you with that. But I think generally that matchup is, I would say, is rather unfavored than.
I think it's
opting
quite
out.
similar to. I don't know. I just think there's just a lot of comparisons I'm already seeing just through you discussing the You're Welcome compared to the Mother Knows Best. Again, I know I'm talking about the separate deck, but if you move to Amber Emerald, putting the You're Welcome in place, because I used to have 2 Mother Knows Best in my previous deck, instantly put in the You're Welcome because of all of the reasons that you said there. It also combos really well by the fact that if they have no cards in their hand already, you can do You're Welcome, and then if you have a You've Forgotten Me in your hand and then a John on board, you make them get rid of 2, you draw more cards. But just in terms of like what's the green purple deck kind of weak to, it's also similar to how I feel green yellow is into amber steel, because like I still feel overall the deck is unfavored going into amber steel, but like there are these situations where if you just pop off with your Ursa the Deceiver and you use like, you know, a well-timed Bare Necessities and stuff like that, you can stall the amber steel player to like their only out is like, you know, the top deck of the whole new world or the top deck of the swords to kind of clear the board. But I don't know, I feel like in general the matchup of green purple versus amber steel is probably, I don't know, maybe closer than the matchup of amber emerald versus
Talk
amber
to me
steel.
about this bonsai.
Yeah,
So
okay.
oh yeah, you can go, Moyen. I love the discussion around this card, but go ahead.
Well, I think in general this deck has 2 slight weaknesses. And those aren't big weaknesses, but I think it has slight weaknesses against Ember Steel and Red Blue. 2 of the very played decks are played a lot, so then you could think, oh, this deck can't be good, but I think it's like almost 50-50 against those decks, and it can absolutely demolish Red Purple.
Yeah.
I think Red Purple is the freest matchup. But the Bonsai itself is just one of the tools the deck has to be able to go under Red Blue to some extent. As without the 2 questers, yes, it is this like it can play early game threats, but Red Blue can kind of just ignore them and do its own thing, while Bandai might force them to actually respond to what they're doing. So it's basically just
why
to get
the
a clock going.
why the 3/2 quester? Why not one of the 1/1 2 questers for 1?
Yeah, because I mean the 2 cost 3/2, it just often 1-for-1s, and it doesn't get banished by Sisu without ice block. It doesn't get banished by brawl. And you can just basically in this deck, the other 2 quester that you could run to be better against Red Blue is often Merfolk. And it does make them discard a card, but the big difference is Bonsai is a 2 quester that's a good card on the draw. Because you can also use it to challenge and just say, okay, I just played a 2 cost 3/2. It's fine. I needed to somehow challenge into my opposing board, but with the Merfolk on the draw, it's not really helping you overcome your on the draw deficit.
It's an interesting card because it I remember the way you explained it to me before, Moyen, is it's like it makes the matchup into red blue better because you can gonna go faster, but it's the whole idea of like usually you can't really build a deck to be great against both lines, right? So we look at the red blue and we look at the amber steel. Bonsai is probably worse against the amber steel because they've got Let the Storm Rage on and stuff like that, but against the red blue it can kind of go faster, you know what I mean? So I think that's the reasoning for it. Yeah,
let's pop over to red blue. I'm looking at Marco's list. I'm assuming you guys are looking at the same one. Moyen, just talk to me about some of the specifics in regards to the card counts. I know you said it changes based on player to player, but going down to the 2 brawls, you have the 2 B preps. This person has 3 1-jump heads with the 4 T-pos. They have the 4 ice block with the 3 small Sisu. Are these the kind of ratios that you're usually going for? Also, has How Far I'll Go just firmly exited the metagame at this point?
No. If you cut No, okay, I can't say this now because I complained about it on a previous episode. But I don't think cutting How Far I Go is correct. Other than that, just relying on the Sisu. If you just rely on the small Sisu to prevent some of the potential threats that can go under you, like Flynn Rider, but also Piglet and Ember Steel, I think you run into some issues with the value, but also with their consistency. To actually be able to remove them. So Brawl is like this inkable piece that helps you not lose the game super early to these pesky threats from Ember Steel and Red Purple. But I do think the vision helps with that a little bit, but with the deck being built this much around ice blocks and small Sisus, you have so many uninkables that you might think, okay, maybe I can't afford to play How Far It Goes in my deck. But I don't think that's necessarily correct, because I think a version like this can easily just run out of stuff to do, because the deck's game plan is still very much to ink aggressively, go to like some very powerful play that generates some card advantage back. But at that point, still, you kind of need to rely on your deck to provide the card advantage that you've kind of given up by ramping so much. And Alphargo lets you do that without sacrificing so much card advantage, without going to the smallest hand size ever. And Vision helps a little bit with having this super high value deck where you get to find the pieces when you need them, and to support this strategy of inking incredibly fast and then kind of relying on your deck to provide the value needed. But also with the Tipo often being the way you ramp on turn 2, you also sacrifice one more card there. So even if Sisu Iceberg is very, very potent, I don't think you're better off cutting the How Far It Goes.
Do you think you should be on four? Sorry, Brennan. I said, do you think you should be on 4 ice block if you play this many, this hard of a Sisu package? Because I've seen a lot of the red blue lists. A lot of them are on 3. Some of them are on 4. Like, because it's definitely interesting that you want that type of item more in general. But then, how, like, is it kind of a dead card on the draw at one stage? Maybe not. Like, I think that is interesting to say. Like, maybe you just go full send for the 4, or maybe 3 is okay.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think you need 4, but 4 still it's at least an option. But if you go this heavy on Iceblock Sisus, maybe you cannot fit How Far It Goes, and I would just rather maybe not go super heavy on these sort of things. Build a more consistent deck where maybe rely a little bit more on Brawls than Sisus, and then be able to fit in a few more How Far It Goes to add consistency to the deck.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, I think 4 dragons is I'm personally a fan of.
4 monstrous dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because basically, I think with Cusco's in the meta and Hideaways in the meta, this is less about a race, and this is for a lot longer. This will be a resource battle. For example, the mirror. And people approach it like that also because they know that Dime can get Cusco to Hideaway. So at the end of the day, I think the biggest factor that decides your chance in the mirror is not how many item removal you play. It's like how well can you generate card advantage, and what's the late game that you play. So I think the amount of dragons you play is the most determining factor of your chances in the mirror, and quickly followed by how far it goes do you play.
How often is the second ability on Cusco triggered by invite only?
Oh, probably
very rarely.
Very rarely, yeah, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's I mean, because you ink so much in the games where you kind of brick, sometimes you just have this Cusco and you'd rather, with your resource management, at least you like get to spend it on the Cusco resist. But I mean, with how much I've played, I've definitely have activated a few times, but it is quite rare.
What would you, if you're looking at this list, what would you cut specifically to add in the How Far It Goes? You just rework the entire Sisu package here?
Yeah, so with the Sisu package, the difficult thing is the less heavy you go, kind of also the less consistent and efficient it gets.
Yeah.
But one example or one potential build that I'm also think is very, very viable is to go either without or very low on the unlinkable Sisus, cut a few of the ice blocks, and then instead play 4th dragon, a few of Argos, maybe more Brawls instead.
Yeah, I think you can also cut this particular list has 3 1-jumps. I think I've seen a lot beyond 4 Tipo and 2 1-jumps.
I love 3 1-jump.
Oh yeah.
It's not even because of the little bit of consistency it adds to playing 1-jump or playing turn 2 ramp. It's much more about how strong turn 2 Tipo, turn 3 do something else, saying 1-jump with the Tipo is. I think that line is maybe a little bit undervalued.
Are you on 4 vision?
Yeah, I've come around to it. I thought it was clunky, at the very start of set 5, but I think it kind of just with everything I've went through about how you just ink to so much ink, and then you play the Automata, it gets removed, and now you're on this like 3-card hand. And then how many visions are in your deck like drastically improves your deck at that stage, and yeah, it's necessary.
Let's quickly hop over to RA.
Mhm.
So Nicola's list. I mean, RA just is RA at this point. But there are some things to talk about. It's so funny as you guys let in Toronto. I swear to God, I was beating the drum on adding some crabs into that list because of a heavy RA meta. But it looks like they've come in at the 2. I mean, the main use case for that is obviously trading up on board with maybe some of your 1-drops, but also just you got the crab on board. You play the fox. You one bang the Queen's Castle, which is nice. Unfortunately, not the library. What would your library Queen's Castle split be?
I think it's I think it's usually Moyen. I think it's usually 4 on the castle, 2 in the library is what I've been seeing. I don't think mine might say 0 library here, but I don't
know. No, the stock list. The one of the stock lists is definitely the 4 castle 2 library splits. And I'm not sure what my personal split would be. The library is very different sort of location, and it provides. So I don't know, the easiest mistake you could make is to see it as more of the same. It's not more of the same. It's a completely different location that doesn't warrant an answer like Castle does, but it has more willpower and it costs less. So in that terms, it's more efficient, and it can be used more reliably as this card draw engine. If you have a library on the board, you can literally use your broom as a pay 2 ink, draw 2 cards, if you can fit it in the same turn. If anything sticks on the board, you can use that. Like if a follower sticks, you can pay 1 ink to draw a card. If your opponent leaves any character up exerted, and on your 10-ish ink turn you want to do your rabbit fox shenanigans, you might as well attach the fox to the library, draw an extra card. So in total, so this list is like close to the stock list. I think the only difference are, instead of the 4-2 split, this is a 3-4 split, and instead it plays what's the one card it cut for that?
like there's less crabs and maybe less Medusa, right? That's what it looks like. Yeah.
I can't work it out right now, but that's not super important. But I think in general, the direction that this deck is now going in, with even in comparison to the stock list, this list will be a menace in terms of how consistent it can draw cards, but it will be maybe a little less good on like getting the board pressure. But this list will very often play into generating card advantage of rabbits and library, but also then as soon as your opponent overcommits to the board, slow them down with B preps whenever you can, continue to do your rabbit stuff until your opponent can't really remove all these pesky locations, because sometimes they will just have to play a board to contest the locations, and then you punish them again with a B prep. And so I think this list is kind of built towards really draining your opponent out of cards until they just stop playing cards, and you will still continue to play cards.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting as well that I've seen a few different RA lists change up the like there are a few out there that have changed up the 1-drop package and actually cut the libraries. So like I know there's a few that are running like the I think it might still be like Olafs and brooms and something like that. So I can't remember the reasoning. Someone was explaining to me the reasoning for the 1-3s again to kind of come back in.
Amber Steel.
Amber Steel, that is what it is. Yeah.
Stormwitch one.
Yeah. That's always what it is.
The small upsides also, sometimes the 1-3s can trade well with a crab, but the big reason is it's better against Amber Steel, but if you don't play brooms, library gets worse. So basically, that's the biggest split between the RA lists right now. Do you either go with a few libraries and brooms as your 1-drops, or do you play 1-3s to tech for Amber Steel, but then library gets worse and maybe you don't play the library at all?
Is 4 Brawl just everybody running 4 Brawl?
Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean, especially the strategy, it doesn't work if Red Blue gets to stick a Flower Charm. So as soon as that happens, you can kind of bin this entire out-draining Ruby Sapphire in the bin if they get to draw an extra 2 cards of a Flower Charm.
Yeah. And that's the list that we have for you guys this week. Again, if you want to see deck list images and you want to navigate through the cards we were talking about, be sure to check the link in the description for that event. So moving into Vegas and Birmingham, I think it's I don't know. I guess if the audience had to guess what myself and Moyen were going towards, it wouldn't be too hard. My guess, if I had to guess what Moyen is going to play, it's probably red blue. I would imagine Moyen's on a red blue list this time. He could go rogue and I don't know, maybe.
Everyone expected me to be on red blue last time, and what did I do?
Yeah, I don't know. I could see Moyen go rogue and be a green purple player. Just net deck Artibox and go to the challenge.
I mean, Moyen did say that like its worst matchups were 50-50s, which is like that's pretty fucking good.
No, that's not what I said.
That's what Artibox would say. Yeah.
Yo, you said that Artibox said that, and then I mean, people can check the tape as we talked about the deck, and we came back around to the end. You're like, yeah, but those matchups I think are closer to 50-50. You're talking about
no, they are close. Okay, right. No, I said okay. They are not like these grand weaknesses. If you would usually say a match loses to 2 of the 3 most played decks, you would never consider it. I'm just saying maybe those 2 matchups are like 46-47%, but the red-purple matchup, it's not 55. It's much better than that.
Yeah.
The red-purple matchup, you cannot lose. You just go long, drain them with Lyle.
What do you guys don't think it would be the most played deck?
Amber Steel.
No, I don't know.
You don't think so?
No, I just don't know. It's just...
Okay, go top 2 actually, because you think we could still exist in a meta where it's RA and Ember Steel top 2? Because I don't.
Yeah,
there's like really compelling deck lists here that are not Ruby Amethyst and Amber Steel. But yeah, I don't know. Every tournament we walk up to, those are the most played.
It's actually I find it really interesting now because as much as we were like, oh, it seems like it's from all the tournament results we've seen as well, especially it's like you would kind of think Amber Steel and Ruby Sapphire are kind of up there at the top. There are a lot of good deck choices or good decks that you could choose to bring to this event. Like, I really do think there's a lot of deck choice for these events.
For sure. I think with Pixelborn being gone, people kind of settle in on a deck a bit more than they used to. Mm-hmm. Where, maybe previously when games are much more on demand, people would play many decks online and then sort of choose the deck that came out on top for the tournament. Well, they probably still do that to an extent. I could see people kind of showing up to locals with the same deck and kind of starting to lean into a very specific color combination or 2 color combinations nowadays, which is maybe why we see people being more sticky towards like this Ruby Amethyst, Amber Steel, like just, I don't know, being the most popular deck to show up to any tournament.
I've seen lots of blue purple players coming out as well. Yeah,
I think
Blurbles.
I think the meta, to an extent, it's very predictable, but not the questions that you've asked. I would say the safest prediction to make is the 3 most played decks are Amber Steel, Ruby Sapphire, and Ruby Amethyst. And I would also think the 4th most played deck is Emerald Amethyst. And then after that, maybe the other decks are definitely like less than 10%.
Yeah.
And I think those predictions I'm super confident to make, and I think they would likely be correct, maybe not, but I think the difficult one is in these top 3 play most played decks, Amber Steel, Ruby Sapphire, Ruby Amethyst, in which order will the popularity actually be? And I don't think that's super easy to predict right now.
I think I could safely put Ruby Sapphire not as number 1, I think.
Oh yeah, I think so too. I think it would be Amber Steel, Ruby Amethyst, 1, 2, and that's probably where the biggest, that's the biggest if.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe Blue Red as the honestly, maybe Blue Red's their most played deck. I could see it not being Blue Red.
So the first few weeks in the bigger events, I've always paid a lot of attention to the color breakdowns, and in the first few weeks it was always basically Amber Steel most played deck, Ruby Sapphire second most played deck, then a little bit of a drop off, and Red Purple. But this drop off over the last few weeks has declined. Now, in one of the last big tournaments we've had, I think like a week ago, it was still the same order, but Ruby Amethyst was almost played as much as Ruby Sapphire. So now at this tournament, if this trend continues at least, maybe Ruby Amethyst overtakes Ruby Sapphire in popularity, but so far that has been the order.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Well, time will tell. Any chance we're going to see Moyen on a Sapphire Steel?
No. They want to win.
I hope we get to see Moyen on a feature match this time.
Oh, no feature match, no feature matches yet.
No, I'm going undercover so far.
You know my speaking of going undercover, my my melee name is not my name.
Yeah. I can't remember the name. Oh, wait. I'll try and guess. Is it like?
No, you can't. You can't dox me like that, bro. People are gonna
Is
know.
it like? It's like Scott something, isn't it? It's like Scott. Is it like Scott Anderson?
Bro, now I gotta change it. Fuck. I remember I was having Tannen pick up my pass because I bought a competitor pass at Dallas, and I was gonna be like 20 minutes late till like when it closed. I was like, hey, can you pick up my pass? Here's my email, all that stuff. He calls me later. He's like, yeah, there's one under your email, but it's for Scott Anderson. I was like, that's me. That's me.
That's me. It's my name in another life. Yeah.
That's me.
All right.
Well, I mean, interesting to see how these tournaments play out, both in Birmingham and Vegas. Like I mentioned, I will be casting. Colin Moyen will be competing. And if you enjoy this podcast, number one thing you do is leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps so much. Video version of this on YouTube at youtube.com/@Podcana podcast. Deck links are in the description. Hit that subscribe while you're there. I think we hit 4K. Did we hit 4K last week or the week before?
Yeah, we hit 4K last week, and also shout out to you guys. We hit 1K on Twitter, which is actually really nice to see as well. So you guys have been popping off with the support recently. Someone did actually message me in the Discord, Brennan, and said, if they see me if they see me in Birmingham, can they come up to me and buy a 47% t-shirt off me? I was like, no, I am not a vendor. I do not carry these with me. But
They're
I do
gone.
think, they're gone. It would be nice to maybe possibly get them back. But
There might be like one or two or three left, but I will not be bringing them with me. One it definitely is Moyen's. I gave out quite a few at Dallas.
Oh yeah?
And I gave out like 10.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, I gave out a bunch.
Sorry, Europeans. I guess you guys are left out.
I would tell the
As
story
usual.
on the podcast. My brother, like my blood brother, who I grew up with, he works for corporate Topgolf. It's like a data analyst.
Mm-hmm.
His boss, the guy who manages him, he played TCG. I was like, oh, which one? It's like, I think it's like this new one. I was like, Disney one? It's like, yeah. I was like, okay. I was like, oh, is he big into it? I was like, yeah, I think he's going to these tournaments. I was like, God, I wonder if he knows about us. And yeah, he'd been listening to us for a while and actually met him at Dallas. At the Dallas tournaments, my brother's real life job boss. It was
Nice.
pretty funny. He actually almost made day 2 as well. He was like very, very close. He was at I think he like extremely close. It was like about almost close to like IDing into into day 2,
wow.
but ultimately didn't make it. So yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever told that story on the podcast, but what a weird scenario. What a small world. Anyway, thank you all so much for listening. Good luck in the tournaments if you are playing. Check out the coverage if you are not. And we will see you all next week.